sunny. The next, the sun goes dark, and you can even see the stars at night in the middle of the day. It's called, of course, a solar eclipse. And at just the right time, at just the right place, the moon moves between the sun and the earth and blocks out the sun. And instead of having that yellow ball of light in the sky becomes as dark as night. You have to be in just the right place, just the right time to see the eclipse. And in most places, most times, it's only a partial eclipse. A total eclipse is very, very rare. But far rarer than a total eclipse is when the sun literally fails to shine. It happened only twice in history. The first time the people of God were slaves in the land of Egypt. The 9th plague, remember. God sent darkness. For 3 days, Egypt was dark. The sun went out. The moon stayed dark. There were no stars. The Egyptians lived in blackness that was as black as this stone. And yet at the same time, the people of God nearby had light. This was no eclipse. Solar eclipses block out a lot of light, and they last for a few minutes. This blocked out all light and lasted for 3 days. God was judging sin, and God was freeing his people. Jesus came into this world, and he said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Darkness is scary. Darkness is more dangerous than daylight. More crimes are committed at night. The possibilities of monsters living under the bed and in our closets terrifies children, usually at night. Once the light goes dark, imaginations run wild. Strange shapes and strange shadows make your pulse run faster. The dark unsettles us. And here is Jesus standing in the middle of it all saying, "I am the light of the world." He calls us away from the lurking shadows of darkness. He calls us away from those shadowy places where we do our dark deeds. He calls us away from our dark thoughts and our dark words. The dark places we are tempted to hide because, well, it's comfort. It is known to us. And he calls us into his marvelous light. Marvelous to be sure, but also a little unsettling. Because we are so exposed in that light. When the sun rose on that first Good Friday, Jesus was standing in front of men who desired to do dark, dark things to him. All through the night, they had been darting in and out of the shadows, harassing him, mocking him, condemning him for crimes that were thought up in the darkness of midnight councils. The most horrible plots always seem to be hatched at night. They waited until dark to arrest Jesus, but when the sun rose the following day, they took him before Pilate and demanded that Pilate complete their plan by putting Jesus to death on the cross. Pilate gave the order. Jesus was nailed to the cross on that first Good Friday. And the sun rose and went higher and higher in the sky as he hung on that cross, until it reached its zenith, its high point in the sky where it was brightest of all. And then it went black. This was no eclipse. This was no solar flare. This was an act of God. It was as though the sun and the moon and the stars were reeling at how creation could treat the Creator. Here again, God was judging as he did in Egypt. God was judging sin. He was judging your sin and my sin. All sin, which was nailed to the cross in the body of Jesus. And just as in Egypt, he was not only judging sin, but he was setting his people free. Through the death and damnation of his Son, he was setting you and me free. Free from our sins. Jesus Christ, the light of the world, was sealed up in a dark hole called a tomb. The door was sealed shut, and there he was left to stay forever. Yet in the darkness of that grave, his light shone again. That tomb could not hold him. Death could not keep its grip on Jesus. But tonight, we sit in shadows again. The shadow of sin, the shadow of betrayal, the shadow of loss, the shadow of the death that we will never have to die because he died for us.